Well, welcome back to another great episode here at Table Talk TV. Hope you guys been in tune to the Mormon conspiracy for the last 2 weeks. But this week we have a contrast of thought. I'm sure all of you guys have heard of the Jehovah Witnesses, the J-Dubs, as we like to call it here at Table Talk. We want to see why there is this contrast. Why haven't the Jehovah Witnesses jumped on the same train? Do they know something that the Mormons don't? Have they just not gotten on the train yet? Stay tuned, we're going to talk about it. Well, colleague, as always, tell us, has the J-Dubs just not gotten on the train? Or do they know something the Mormons don't?
I don't know. But the J's are anything, well, their W's are not swole. We'll just say that.
So you got to be tipping on them 4-4s and gripping that grain.
I'm trying to.
Not
I'm
the
really
post,
trying.
though. Not the singular post.
The whipping one?
No, the one that Jesus was hung on. As
He was
the
actually
Dubs.
hung on a put, like they strung him high.
Yeah, like the Dubs believe, the singular post.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's just, again, based on ignorance.
Yeah. But we also have a guest today. We have Mr. Golden Arm. So welcome to him. Say hello to the audience.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So go ahead, colleague. Let us know. Tell us about the Dubs and why they're not swollen.
I thought you would never request. So
That's all I
here
do.
here's a brief intro into the J-Dubs and their beliefs.
Jehovah's Witness beliefs. They teach that Jesus already did show up and he had an invisible return in 1914. Now, historically, the reason they got to this is interesting. They were predicting this sort of like Armageddon to happen in 1914, the end of the world. It didn't happen, so then they kind of backtracked and said, well, Jesus returned invisibly. So his rule on earth began, but it's invisible, and it's really, now he's ruling from the Watchtower organization secretly. But Matthew 24, Jesus specifically warns, if anybody tells you that the Christ has returned and he's in some secret room, don't believe them, because every eye will see him, everyone. Scripture was refuting Jehovah's Witness teaching before it had been invented. It's kind of amazing.
I like that mystical music. It really adds a certain bouginess to the whole concept.
Oh, I know. That's why, I could have said everything he was saying, but he just did it that much better. So I just let him say it for me. It's like,
Nice and articulate.
it's the least I could do.
Yeah, that's excellent. I like that.
Literally the bare minimum. So there it is.
I just don't understand how they can say that he's came back invisible.
Well, they also believe he rose on the third day invisibly too. Like his body didn't actually raise, his spirit did. Or he raised in spirit form, I guess.
Even though when he rose again, he showed himself, 500 people or so? Multiple people? Just the word hadn't got around yet, or?
Yeah, the JWs believe that Jesus was Michael the Archangel in the Old Testament, a spiritual being in the Old Testament. Then he didn't get emptied into a physical body. He actually just transformed into a physical body in the New Testament. And then at his death, burial, and resurrection, he transformed back into a spiritual angel, Michael the Archangel. So he's always been Michael the Archangel, but his physical body was called Jesus, but he was still Michael, just a physical form of Michael the Archangel. And they don't believe Jesus had a two-part to him either. It's not like nobody has a soul. We're all what they call monocotamous, is a $5 term. We don't have a soul or a spirit or anything. We're just a body. That's what you are. And that's what Jesus was. Or you're a spiritual being, but you're not. Then you don't have a physical body. So you can't have both. You're only a spiritual being or physical being.
As we continue on, Mr. Colleague, what has the J-Dubs missed? Why aren't they jumping on the same bandwagon as the Mormons with all this modernization of the podcast, the colors, the 294,000 words and throughout sentences with only one error and all of it? Shout out to Brian Hayes.
Well, I'm glad you asked, host. So let me tell you. So what we've been talking about, for anybody who hasn't seen our previous 2 episodes, we've been talking about how the Mormons have really been pushing videos on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of it, the discourses.
Mm.
And they've been really pushing hard that they have historical evidence to back the Book of Mormon, if you can believe it. Now, nobody's buying it. And if you read the comments in these videos, nobody's buying it. Everybody thinks it's a bunch of horse pucky. But they're still pushing this out. And there's more and more Mormon channels, and that's hard to say that 8 times fast, arising every day. I keep seeing more channels even. And they all look like these young hipster, Gen Z, Gen Alpha podcasters. But you don't see this with the J-Dubs. There's nothing. Now, both groups, Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, are not allowed to watch anything on social media. They both have their own websites. If you ever go online, you can go to jw.org and get all your news around the world from there. You can get all of your information about the Bible, information about anything from jw.org. Same with Mormons. They're not allowed to go on YouTube. Nobody's allowed to get any information outside of their respective channels on their social media. So I don't know why Mormons doing it, but the J-Dubs are not.
Well, I think we already clarified why the Mormons were doing it. At least you were saying the assumption is the conspiracy is that they are trying to flatline plateaus of history. So I think, according to you, your assumption is that there's an agenda for the Mormons.
Yeah.
So then maybe the truth is that the J-Dubs, they don't care so much if there's a flat line or not.
Yeah, and their numbers are declining too. Both churches are declining in numbers because the internet is a powerful tool. And the internet, that's not just them either. I mean, it's Islam, it's Roman Catholics. A lot of these pseudo breakoffs of Christianity have been declining. But people within the Christian faith have also been declining too. So I'm not going to we'll play fair with all that. Anybody who is ignorant of their faith, the internet is going to help you with that ignorance. So it doesn't matter what you believe, what you don't believe. The internet is going to give you something to believe in or not believe in. So
do parents actually restrict their kids from going on the internet?
Well, it's just one of those doctrinal affirmations because they know that, well, at least they propagate that these are deceptions of Satan. These are deceptions. These are lies. And if you entertain these lies, you're going to be deceived and it's going to weaken your faith. So it's up to you, of course. You have free will. You can choose whatever, but you have the proclivities now to be led into deception. So they're encouraging people not to do such things.
Yeah, I've actually been told by Mormons who've came to my door and J-Dubs who've came to my door, because I would try to show them a video of their own people, like leaving the faith and why their own people left. And they'd be like, oh, is that YouTube? We can't watch that. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'll just tell you what they said then. And I'll just repeat what the people said. Unless you're not allowed to go door to door anymore, because, this is the world we live in. But if you follow me over here, so this is the Jehovah's Witnesses, the decline of Jehovah's Witnesses, their pandemic continues. This guy wrote this article giving you the statistical data. I'm not going to waste your guys' time with all this, but he talks about how it's been declining since 2010, and it's not easing up. Same thing, and I showed another article for the Mormons either last week or the week before. You guys can go check that out in our previous episodes, but yes, it's my personal belief. I haven't heard anybody else talk about this. It's my personal belief, and maybe your guys' beliefs too on this show, but the Mormons are purposely showing all this history. And if you guys have seen the other videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about, how stupid it sounds. They're talking all kinds of nonsense that nobody's buying, even if they're not historians. But they're doing this so that way when a Christian gives you historical evidence for Jesus' death, burial, resurrection, or his birth, or anything else, you're all going to sound Mormon. We're all going to sound like Mormons. So you'll be talking to an atheist or agnostic, and as soon as you start saying, well, historically, they're gonna turn their ears off because they're literally going to feel like they're talking to a Mormon.
So how are you going to tie this in with the J-Dubs? I get that. I'm excited for this continuation with the J-Dubs.
So while the Mormons they're falling, many people are leaving the Mormon faith, and they're pulling Christians down with them. They're trying to anyway. The J-Dubs are actually being respectful about it. So they're leaving, they're losing, their W's are shrinking.
But they're honest.
Yeah, well.
Where are they going? Are they going
to the earth? Because they don't believe in an eternity.
To Middle Earth.
So the ones that are, the J-Dubs that are leaving, the J-Dub church, are they going to Christian church or are they just going to no church?
Some of them, most of them just lose their faith in religion entirely.
But there's been a big move in the last 5 to 7 years of what's called deconstruction. And what Christians too, because Christian church is declining too. The idea of deconstructionism itself is very prominent now. And so what it is let's take all the doctrine that you've been taught all your life. Let's re-examine it all with a critical mindset. Let's put all the factual tests to these claims. And if need be, let's deconstruct what they would call dogma or these doctrines and only believe things that can be evidentially, factually proven. And if not, at the end, as we slowly deconstruct all these doctrines, you may have nothing to believe. And that's okay, according to the deconstructionists, because that's the truth. And since you're looking for truth, deconstructionism may help you find the truth. And that's been an on-rise in almost all faiths. And so, of course, the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses are being affected by that as well. And yeah, the end result would be atheism.
Some people do get saved, though, from Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Islam or Roman Catholicism. Some people actually do get saved, and they actually come to a belief in the Bible and Christ and all that, but that's not always, unfortunately. In fact, I've actually seen a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses talking on YouTube, and it's really sad because they were told, like, some of these guys are really old, they don't have any children, they're really poor now, and it was all because they believed in this Jehovah's Witness faith that Jesus was going to come back in 1978. That was the latest one. They don't make predictions anymore, but 1978 was the year that they were supposed to come back, that Jesus was supposed to come back, and that's when the resurrection would happen. 144,000 would get to reign on the earth, all that. But you were not supposed to have children because you'd have to go through tribulation. You're not supposed to have money. You're not supposed to have anything. So listening to some of these, like I remember the face on this one old guy and his wife sitting in there talking about how he defected from the faith and they wanted children. Now they're too old to have children. But they actually wanted children. And of course, they wanted money, they wanted a house, but they gave it all up to follow this belief.
Well, maybe the Mormons, they have more freedom. In
J-Dubs or Mormons?
The Mormons. Maybe the Mormons have more freedom in the way they can articulate their belief system, and that's probably why they are modernizing. Or at least there's, I guess we'll call, like, offshoot groups that they have authorized to be more modernized, because they know if you don't get with the times, you're going to get left with the times. But maybe the J-Dubs, they just, because every time I see them, they're always in suit and ties. Look like a news channel, a news broadcast from NBC. And this is how they always want to present themselves. So maybe they just believe if we stick it out, just run the races, don't change anything. Because if they really believe, because they had prophecies in 1914, 1978, and the idea is that it's supposed to be now. It's supposed to happen right now. If we change, we might actually be forsaking something and we might actually miss the boat. So we just have to stick it out. So maybe that's why the J-Dubs aren't adding into this modernized articulation of their doctrine.
Well, it's funny you said that. There is a video someone put, this is from the J-Dubs website, jw.org, but somebody put it on TikTok, so we'll just watch that real quick. Apparently they're loosening the dress code restrictions.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
Oh.
Body has decided that sisters may choose to wear slacks when participating in.
And, forget about this guy over here. I don't know if that's legitimate or not. It looks like After Effects.
Oh, yeah, just like
Sign language?
Yeah, it looks like it, but he gets goofy. I don't know if he's actually supposed to be there or not. But this is real, though. I've actually been on their website. This guy's real. This is their website. I don't know if this guy, though. Anyway.
the ministry, and when attending Christian meetings, assemblies, and conventions. If a sister chooses to wear slacks on such occasions, they should not be casual, but dignified, modest, and appropriate. When a sister has a part on the program, she should wear a skirt or a dress, if that is the standard of dress in that land.
In that land.
Of course, some sisters may choose to wear a skirt or a dress even when they do not have a part on the program.
Thank you.
In addition, brothers may choose not to wear a tie or a jacket when participating in the ministry and
Appreciate
when
that.
attending Christian meetings, assemblies, and conventions. If a brother chooses not to wear a tie or a jacket on such occasions, he should dress in a manner that is appropriate,
In that land.
modest, and dignified, not casual. When a brother has a part on the program, he should wear a tie and a jacket, if that is the standard of dress in that land.
In that land.
Of course, some brothers may choose to wear a tie or a jacket even when they do not have a part on the program. When visiting Bethel, it would be appropriate for brothers to wear a tie and a jacket, and for sisters to wear a skirt or a dress, if that is the standard of dress in
Seems
that
real
land.
nervous reading this.
We love you all very much. Body
Thank
has
you.
decided
That's
that
it. So, well, hold on real quick.
That must
So-
be a big deal then if they're changing that.
Yeah, that's what everybody's saying in the comment section, which the comments section, which you can see to the right over here. So this lady says governing body is now doing the deciding, not Jehovah anymore. Someone asked, "What does any of this have to do with God?" Some other lady said, "Back then, my dad beat me for wearing a trouser.
Oh, wow.
Now it's a sign. Can he tell me sorry now that he's in the grave?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, gal and me, mama, 34. Your dad's not coming back.
Are you a father?
No, that's her name.
Oh, I thought you were just claiming the priesthood.
But I mean, no, but this guy talking though, he actually sounded like, you know, you go to Six Flags or Disney World or something, and you hear the guy on the speakers like, please keep your hands in the vehicle at all times. Like it sounds like some kind of tour guide or
Yeah,
something.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one.
His official statement.
What's crazy
Yeah.
is that now they're changing that. Like, what is? Do they have a reason that they're changing that? And
I think it's just modernization. Because if you start losing a lot of the young, because the future of any religion is the youth.
yeah,
And if the youth come in and they're forced to wear certain attire or have a certain persona, but
Certain
then they
skin tone.
and they get disassociated, and now they don't feel relative in any way. It's one thing to be relative, but in no way. That kind of isolation is hard to say, just stick through it. Just weigh it out. You're just going to start seeing people fall off by the wayside. So it's just probably more of a strategical tactic to maintain at least some of the youth. Because if you got nothing but old people, your religion's gone in the next 20
Well, here
years.
soon, Mormons and J-Dubs might not exist either.
Well, if
Because
they keep pushing the youth, they might.
I mean, nobody's buying it.
But
Yeah,
like,
that's
it's hard.
what-
Yeah, it's hard too because like I don't think church is appealing to anybody unless the power of God changes that. So even it's like I don't know. It is hard. I do know that for me at least, the suit and all that stuff all the time seems a little bit not inviting for me.
mm-hmm.
But now that I do have a faith, and I guess it'd be a choice that I would have to make. And I guess that's the choice that they're making, and people are leaving, and so they're trying to change that. But also, it's where did they get that in the first place? And
Well, that's what one of the comments said, which is a good question. It's like, what's this got to do with God? Really. And I think that's what a lot of people, it doesn't matter if Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, or
Eric
just,
Hovind.
or
So
just
that kid asked Eric Hovind too. He's like, "Yeah, what does that have to do with God?"
if you just go into a regular church, a Protestant church, Catholic church, no matter. The question is what does any of that have to do with God? And that's a good question. Even Jesus talked about the same kind of rhetoric, not specifically clothes, but a rhetoric in Mark 7 about you guys have these ideas, these traditions, but they're just traditions of men. I mean, you have turned these things into something. something that might have been good, something that was good, but you've added all these extra layers, and it's like, what is all this? What does any of this have to do with God?
Well, the JWs will be the first ones to tell you that everything's a tradition of man. I mean, they don't celebrate anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything except their own man-made tradition, of course.
Right.
You know, which I meet with a JW, and he is not about celebrating anything except for the communion. I mean, not even his own kids' birthdays, or and he specifically says that nowhere in the Bible does it say to celebrate any of these things. Jesus only tells us to celebrate communion.
Mm-hmm.
But then they are making all these dress code laws, and they're making all this stuff, and you have to date and marry another JW, or you're out of the family, but technically. And it's like, what does that have to do with God? Where does
right.
Because a lot of words say that.
A lot of people, they try to associate things like a misconstruction of a verse like, keep away from all appearances of evil. So then they utilize something like that as attire. And then the reason why they use attire clothing is because, well, that's cultural. And if the world is polluted and evil, and if you start adapting that evil culture into your life, then what you're doing is integrating yourself into the appearances of evil by simply celebrating a birthday. They might say, oh, well, that's pagan or worldly. It's not in the Bible. Or you wear certain clothing. Well, that's just socially astute. Well, you're just adapting to the world now. But yeah, the same thing is where suit and ties come from. I mean, do you want to be associated with J.P. Morgan and the Federal Reserve and politicians who wear suit and ties every day too? We're a bunch of the most corrupt people on this planet. And it's like, it doesn't really matter. You can attest to anything in corruption with anything. You can look like the first century Jews and wear their garments, and you can still say, well, what are you, one of these Pharisees? It doesn't really matter. It's like but that's how people run down these trains. They take an idea. It's now turned into dogma. They take this idea. They enforce this arbitrary claim on it. And then if you don't follow it, well, you're evil.
Yeah.
Now you're condemned.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like a mask behind change. It's like, look at me, I'm different now.
Yeah.
Rather than, and it makes sense if it's not
they use that
spiritual and it's all physical, or if it's all spiritual and not physical at all. It's, the clothes really don't matter.
But they use that verse too. It says, where Paul says, don't be conformed into this world. Be ye transformed. And they'll say stuff like that. And now you're conforming to the world.
Right.
Yeah.
There is one guy, again, I had to really look for JW content online because they're still staying strong. They're still not allowed to be online, but apparently Mormons are now allowed to watch YouTube and all this other stuff, which that's really bad for them. That's why they're actually pushing it so much. But JWs, it's hard to find stuff. So all you see is like this ex-JW stuff online. But here's a guy who apparently is an ex-JW, and he talks about the way that ex-JW people talk, apparently.
I gotta admit, some of y'all's videos are a little triggering, particularly the men who might have just left Jehovah's Witnesses, because y'all still got that elder speak.
Elder
y'all
speak.
Still got
like
that tone of voice.
Shout out to Orwell.
As we see, brothers and sisters.
Double speak.
No, stop that. You
Stop
need
that.
to weed that out of your system, because I'm gonna skip all your videos until it's gone. Because I can't do this. Like the feigned piousness in your tone of voice, take that out.
Take it out.
Talk like a regular person. Talk like you would at work or off the stage. Because some of y'all be making your videos and you sound like an elder still. Take that out. Take
out of
that
the
out.
program.
Sound like a normal human being. Don't be like, yes, I used to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And when we look at
I like that. I've never heard of that.
chapter 5, verses
Elder speak. That sounds like something in a video game. And now we are going to perform Elder speak.
Actually sounds like the name of a video game.
Yeah. Welcome to Elder speak.
Welcome to Elder speak.
Well, it just sounds like Orwell's, like double talk, double speak. But yeah, that's cool. I guess that's true. But I mean, you got to be sensitive. It's tough. If you're fresh and you've been indoctrinated for, 10 years, 15 years, or you just raised that way. It's just part of your culture. And now there is this deconstructing at that point.
I agree.
It's tough.
What a lot of them say too is a lot of these ex-Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, they say it's literally all a show. And everybody in those groups know it's a show. That's why he said, you got to stop talking like you're on a stage and talk like you do at work. Because he knows he's an ex-JW, and he knows these elders don't actually talk like that in real life. They only talk like that on stage. So it's just interesting that everybody in the camp knows this is all fake. We all have a bunch of plastic faces on. We're going to go home and beat our wives when we get home.
Wow, what a claim.
And this is all fake. That's just what they think. And they all know it somehow. And the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses share the same idea. Like, I've heard it many times from all these ex-people. It's like, and somehow they just keep on doing it. It's like, it just feels tired.
Well, that old guy, he did make a dichotomy. He says, when you're on the program, but when you're not on the program. So I guess there is program talk and life and code and dress, and then non-program. But he still wants you to be proper. But maybe there's program talk.
Yeah, we heard it.
Non-programmed talk.
We heard it from the programmer himself.
Yeah.
He was like, and when you guys are in the program, ladies, I want you to keep your hands inside the vehicle at all times.
And buckle your seatbelt.
Yeah, that's right. Buckle your seatbelt. Please, no flash photography while the vehicle is moving. And like, that's the programmer.
That's the architect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're saying they all know?
It seems like it. Every time they come out, they all seem to know.
From the one guy that I talk to him once a month for a few hours, but he seems to believe it 100%. And it would be hard to put on that front. Well, you never know.
Well, think about church speak. I mean, when you go to church, it's the same thing.
I
You walk
agree.
into a church, and there's church speak.
Well, even if you're reading the Bible and you're in the Bible, it's the more things you're putting into you, the more, I mean, it's going to reflect in your day-to-day life. And it was hard for me to start going to church, and just because I was new and I hadn't really read and I hadn't really known what, I didn't know, really anything. Still don't. But now when people talk, or when I talk and I talk with other people, they know what I mean and I know what they mean for the most part. But when I talk with this guy, it's I would say it's almost intimidating in the fact of I don't know. He just seems so rooted, and this guy's, early 60s, so, and he's actually in the hierarchy, or whatever you would call it, of the JW church. And he has been for many years.
So if you asked him if his elders, you're saying he's an elder?
Yes.
Okay. So, and he talks with you, and if you asked him, do you talk like this everywhere? Like, do you talk professional like this on the stage and with me, and when I'm not around, when you don't have an appearance to uphold, do you talk the same everywhere? What would he say?
I don't know. I've actually seen him at his house as well. I've actually worked for him. It's hard to tell. I mean, I could ask him. I mean, and we don't just talk about, I guess, religion and stuff. We just talk about everything.
Well, I assume it's the same thing with anybody, and that's why colleague, he adds that flavor of oomph, like
Yeah.
I don't know if all the J-dubs are beating their wives, but there's that flavor of oomph. But there is that the understanding that it's expected. Like, if I go to a bar, I don't expect people to stop drinking.
Right.
If I go to the streets, I don't expect people to stop using drugs. If I see a Jehovah's Witness, I expect them to act like one. Now, even if they're not, now they have left the faith. Now, as they get acclimated to people outside of that group, yeah, they're going to adapt as anything else. So there is this time period. And maybe old boy that we watched on the clip, maybe he had some time to be acclimated. Maybe he's just not fresh. Or maybe he got really hurt, and now he's just on that level where he just want to expose everybody. And everything is absolutely heinous. And I get that too. But yeah, there is this time period. But, like indoctrination, every time you talk about Jehovah's Witness stuff, you've been programmed like the programmer said, this is how you need to talk. So even as you are an ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, you probably just have this natural, like it just turns on. It's like, oh, and so now we talk like this. And you just need to be reminded, you're free, bro. You ain't got to talk like that. But it'll probably take some time. But oh boy, he was strong on it.
If there's no appearance to uphold, why are you wearing a suit and tie?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not in the 60s anymore. We're not on television like TV Land or something. Like, why are you still wearing a suit and tie? You're not working on Wall Street or anything. I mean, you're part of a church. Why are you still wearing a certain suit and tie, especially in this day and age? And now they're actually releasing some of these restrictions too. Like, women can now wear pants, I guess.
The slacks.
Yeah, as long as they're in the program.
I will tell you though, this guy does wear a suit and tie still to breakfast, or wherever. I mean, he's always in suit and tie, but
does he wear it to bed?
I don't know.
I don't know, but
we got him. There's been a couple instances where he said some things, that had been really rude, not to me, but to other people. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. But at the same time, maybe it was just, I know that he was being honest. I was just like, whoa, So I don't know. I did ask him, I asked him why he was a JW and how he came to be a JW and if he was a Christian or Catholic or something or nothing before. And he said that, a long time ago, some people would travel a long ways to, tell him about the JW organization and stuff. And they just kept coming and coming and coming. And when he was a kid, his parents were Christian, and he said that when he heard the JW stuff, that he was like, that makes sense, I knew that other stuff was a lie, and it's really confusing on what keeps them there, if it's that strict of a regimen, or these I know it's almost like a military. It's kind of like you're told when to breathe and you're told what to do, and it's actually easier that way because you don't have to.
Well, you take all the guesswork out.
Yeah, and you can be under somebody's reign, that sadly for them it isn't Christ,
When you have a lot of freedom, the thing that is the most fearful is accountability, because you got no one to blame. But if somebody's telling you something to do, it's a good example, like you say, like the military. So your sergeant tells you, here's an operation, you need to go out there and kill these people. So you come back and say, well, I was ordered to do that. So there's like this justification of blame. I wouldn't have done it on my own. I wouldn't have killed these people, but that was a part of the order. And now you're just taking it. So there's less of responsibility on the person. So people do like that. People like that heavy structure where I don't have to make this choice. I can pawn it off as this is just what I've been told to do. Now, if I was free, maybe I'll do something different, but that's just the way our belief system is. And people like that. When you're left with all this autonomy, the only thing you can say is, well, it's my choice. It's my fault. I'm the one to blame. And some people, they don't like all that freedom. And so a lot of people actually go to cults for those reasons. Like a lot of people actually go to the military for that reason. They're in this area and they don't know what to do. And when you don't know what to do, he's like, maybe I should just go to the military. Maybe I'll find what to do. And that's what happens to a lot of people in cults too. Or the other side is they're looking for structure.
I agree. And I know that for me, I've been in some structural situations and it's easier, and I actually felt really good about myself. And it, I'd have to think a lot more about it, but it almost set me up for failure to be independent on my own, because I got out and everything was so overwhelming and full of anxiety, and I had my own decisions to make, and I actually had to find these things out for myself. But also too, it's like, what should we be worried about? The JW organization?
I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Are you worried?
I don't know. I'm not worried.
I think your friend should probably be worried, because here soon he's going to be the only one left standing on that island.
I think that's why I'm asking too. Should I be worried about my friend?
Well, I think there's always that layer of concern. I mean, if he's your friend and you use that as a true affirmational claim, like he's my friend, of course you should be worried, because you have a belief system that's different and you believe what you hold to as truth. And if that's the truth, well, somebody's wrong here. I mean, if there's a real truth, everybody ain't telling the truth. And there's something to be worried about there, because your end game and his end game is going to be different. And that's something to be worried about. So there's a genuine concern about that. But then again, there is also, the plot of God. And so there's some part where we worry and we try to do our best. And I think that's why we have these conversations, so people can think about, is there something to these belief systems like Mormonism or Jehovah's Witnesses, or is it something that you should just keep on reminding yourself, no matter how adaptive the Mormons get or how structural the Jehovah's Witnesses are? Is that something that you should be entertaining yourself with, or more or less try to advise your friends?
Yeah.
Don't get sucked into that.
Yeah, because I know like there's differences between all religions, but there's also some of those differences really, I feel like as humans, we like to point fingers right and wrong. And I think just for the sake of being right and wrong, and so I guess what I'm asking is, how would the JW's belief system differ from what the Bible actually says about salvation, and kind of weed through the weeds, or sift through the weeds of, I don't know, maybe to help me have some more profitable conversations with my friend and others that I run into.
Well, the most easiest thing is, who is Jesus? That's the easiest conversational piece to have. That's where you and your conviction is going to find yourself at a genuine crossroad, is who is Jesus Christ? And their interpretation and what you believe will be at a fork in the road.
Like, do you believe Jesus is God, or is he Michael, an archangel who was created?
Which is not a God.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I believe he's God, and
Well, there you go. That right there is probably the most simplest thing.
I know their Bible says differently. Jesus is a God.
Yeah, they have the world translation.
And
But that's something you could talk about for a long time, because that's as simple as it gets. Is you believe Jesus is a God, not a God, the God, the one and true and only living God.
do they believe that he died for our sins, like I would believe?
Yes. But as because he's Michael, he when he rose again back in being into Michael, because he followed God's commands so perfectly, he got elevated to the kingship. So he is the King of Kings, Lord of Lords right now as Michael, the archangel. He got elevated to literally just like God, which is what Michael means in the Hebrew. The Hebrew name Michael actually means one who is like God, or who is like God. So he is above all the other angels. He was made a little lower than the angels for a time, like the book of Hebrews says, but then afterwards he was brought above the angels.
A lot of times when you talk to him, you ask, what's the point of Jesus? And really what it comes down to is, he is our example. Because what you want to know is, well, why did he even come? So we can know how to be good witnesses of Jehovah.
Right.
And so when you watch Jesus, he followed everything perfectly. If there was ever such thing as a perfect man, an example of what you should be, that's Jesus. And so, because you're responsible in their mind, it's a real libertarian free will. Like, you are absolutely responsible, and you got to know how to be that real responsible worker towards your salvation. And how that happens is by following the example that was given to you through Jesus. And so Jesus basically is the epitome of the perfect man. And that's how they kind of see it. It's not so much that he is God, because Jehovah's God. He is the example that Jehovah provided for you, so you can know the way.
Wearing a suit and tie. I do agree, and I even agree with that also, for me as well. I mean, he is.
But there's the salvation isn't in Jesus. The salvation is found if you follow the work and path of Jesus. You have to do it.
Yeah, like I have the power to do that.
Well, you have to, according to them. Jesus is not here to save you per se. He provides salvation by showing you the way. but you have to follow, you have to do the way.
Yeah. And I agree. That's that's exactly what this guy believes too. And it seems hard to him, especially with his age and how long he's been in the church, and my age and how long I've been in the church. That's why earlier I was saying it was kind of intimidating, almost like I don't want to. I guess I'm still trying to find a wise way to kind of penetrate his walls in a way. His walls that have been built for 40 years, and they're thick, and even with people that aren't religious or have a faith, it's hard to get. I believe we all turn into narcissists in the end, but
well, they love to teach, so they're not going to listen to you trying to teach them. I've tried many times. The best thing to do is just ask him questions and just pull threads. Whenever you ask questions and he gives you an answer, you ask more questions. Just keep asking more questions.
Let him teach himself in a way.
Well, yeah, you could, but you're genuinely learning from him too, like what he believes. And then you'll start seeing things that don't add up, things that don't line up. And so you ask about it. And then he may be able to make it line up for you. It's like, okay, well, next question. Well, tell me about this. And you just keep on letting him teach you. And
some things I've asked him. So the last time I saw him, I was obviously talking about Christmas. I was like, why don't you guys celebrate stuff like that? And he had the typical, like, it's pagan, it's this and that. Go look it up for yourself. Should I right there have been like, well, I'm looking to you to let me know, like, what you believe.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Right.
Yeah, I generate a conversation. It's because everybody that's been programmed, I would just keep saying the word programmed. Everybody who's been programmed, there's a line where, because most people, they don't have photographic infinitive memory. But
they have jw.org.
Yeah, but that's right. They have to go back to something. And at some point when you have conversations, this line runs out.
Yeah.
And as the line runs out, you start to find the honest belief of this person, because the rhetoric is coming to an end. So you just keep talking, and eventually they're excited because somebody's interested now. And at some point, now you're going to start asking more questions where they just haven't been programmed enough yet. And then at some point, that's what causes the questions. Everybody feels safe when you can remember the catechisms and remember the verses. But when the verses run out and you stop forgetting, and that's it, that's all. Well, now you got to kind of be honest, because you got nothing left. The program ran out.
And Mormons are allowed to lie, and they really don't. You can tell they really don't know a whole lot, and they don't really need to. They can just start lying and making stuff up. And eventually, when they hit a wall, they'll just say, well, you should come to our church, or we'll ask an elder for you. And they'll just shrug the responsibility on someone else. Jehovah's Witnesses are different. They will sit there and talk to you for as long as you want. And they are usually really smart. They're usually not very stupid people, so they know their stuff.
Yeah.
And every verse you throw at them, they have an answer for, because they're reading the same Bible that you are. They actually use these same verses we try to put on them. They use it against us. So every verse you think you haven't figured out on and cornered on, they have answers for every single one of them.
I don't agree they read the same Bible, but
Well, it's
do you
true.
think their Bible has that one different verse?
Yeah.
John chapter 1, but
Yes. It's not the same exact one, but
I do agree with you. We have talked about some verses, and it's almost like they're really literal in a way. The first meeting I had with him, he talked about the 144,000. Like, that's an exact number, and it's all the J-dubs that. What's also crazy is, though, that he said one of his sons who had passed away is actually going to be on this world as it should have been, with the 144,000, and then he'll get to talk to him and talk some sense into him then. And I was just, it's hard for me to hear that, or, this guy is in the church. High up, it's like, man, I want to know where he got that. I want to know who, all why. And
Well, conversation is the best thing, but yeah, one thing happens, even for the individual who's talking. Like, even if you are the antagonist in the sense, what happens is even you, it could challenge you, though. That's the honesty about conversation, though. You may think you have this agenda, but genuine conversation can honestly challenge you too in that same proposition. Because as you ask them, well, where did you get that idea from? Well, as you listen to it, it may make logical sense to you for whatever reason. And as it does, now you have to ask yourself. So you, at the same time, it forces you to be honest because you've been programmed too.
Right.
You've been going to the church and you've been indoctrinated with these doctrines. And you may not necessarily understand them all, but what you say is, well, this is what the church believes, so I believe it. And that's another program. And so as you have conversation, you have to weed out your own programming. And you have to figure out, well, that's a good point. Why do I believe what I believe? So there's what we call a dialectic relationship. It's reciprocal. There's real conversation going on. But you may have this agenda like, I'm going to try to help this guy come into the truth. But real conversation, it's going to help both sides of the coin if it's real.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it is doing that. I can agree. My agenda at the beginning was kind of like that. I wanted to steer him, but I also went into it really not expecting much.
Mm-hmm.
But I had already had a relationship with this guy, it's one of his sons, and then with this guy, like I said, I worked for him when I was actually suspended from my job. But it has helped me because eventually, I mean, after the first couple of meetings, we had really nothing. Like my agenda was out the window,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, I don't know if it was unwise of me to not prepare for these things, but I don't prepare for them. I just go, I just show up and we talk. But it has helped me because he said some things that I went home and checked on and looked at, and also challenges me in my own faith because I also need to, I don't know, be renewing my mind and sharpening my swords. And
I think just like anybody, you have to answer for yourself. Why do you believe whatever you believe in? It doesn't matter if you're an atheist. I'm going to ask you the same thing. Why do you believe these dissertations from professors? What makes you believe that? Have you ever seen these things, whatever we are? And it's back to a program. And so I think it's just a fair thing anyway. If you want to be programmed, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people like that security. I'm under the authority measure. But then there's some people who's like, I really want truth. I want to know if there's a truth. What is that thing? Well, if that's the case, then yeah, you're subject to be stumped. Because if you're being honest, you may hit a wall too.
Yeah, I actually just had a conversation with another Christian friend, and I was playing devil's advocate for J-Dubs, and he was a Christian. He was playing the Christian on the argument. We're just texting back and forth, and he said, "Well, Jesus claims that I am. He says, unless you believe that I am, you will die in your sins." So I was like, okay, but what does that mean? Like, didn't the angel talking to Moses? Because that's what Yahweh said, right, in the Old Testament. The angels, God talked through an angel in the burning bush. It actually says that in Exodus 2. It actually says an angel appeared to Moses in the burning bush. So it was an angel who said, I am, in the burning bush. So the same way, Jesus, being an angel, Michael the archangel, says, I am. But it's not him that's talking, it's Yahweh speaking through him as the angel. So my Christian buddy was like, oh, see, I got you, and I was like, but this is easy. Like, it's not like the JWs never read their Bible and they don't know that these passages exist. They do know. At one point, this is an interesting thing. I don't know if you guys know this, and maybe our audience can benefit from this. And then they'll benefit from the conclusion afterwards that, well, I'll get there, but I created this Google Doc a few years ago about failed JW prophecies. And I just want to show you guys how many times their elders or their watchtower prophesied and it didn't come to pass on their own acknowledgement. So in 1897, they said, our Lord, the appointed king, is now present since October 1874 AD. So they said that Jesus came back already. In 1874, they were saying Jesus already came back. Now I have the footnotes as well. That was from Studies in the Scriptures, one of their volumes, volume 1. These are all quotations I have from their literature. Then in 1899, they said, the battle of the great day of God Almighty, in Revelation 16:14, which will end in AD 1914, with the complete overthrow of Earth's present rulership, is already commenced. So they were saying it's going to end in 1914, and they said that it's already started in 1899. Then in 1916, they said the Bible chronology herein shows that 6 great 1,000-year days, beginning with Adam and are ended, and that the great 7th day, the 1,000 years of Christ's reign, began in 1873. It's like, wait a second. I thought we said that was happening earlier. And now again, 1918, here we go again. And then 1922, here we go again. 1923, again. 1925. These are all quotations taken from their books, their magazines. If you look down here, and I got it all right here. If anybody's interested in the comments, they can request this, but you can find this anywhere. You don't need me. This is everywhere, all over online. This is why JWs are not allowed to go searching the internet by themselves. They have to go to jw.org to get filtered. They have to get their food regurgitated for them. 1926, 1931, 1941, these are all failed prophecies of when God would come back. When Jesus would come back, Michael, their archangel. I don't have the latest one, the 1978 prophecy, but that was the biggest failure.
You know what's an interesting correlation here with these dates? At this point, in 1897 and 1890, we have one of the pitfalls of the United States where J.P. Morgan has to bail out the United States. So if you go to 1916, World War I.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you keep on going down, these are all very particular war dates. And then if you get to 1941, World War II.
And so that's actually what it was, too. They actually confessed World War I is the Armageddon. Mm-hmm. That's the great war of our king coming back. And then, yes, World War II, same thing, 1941.
Well, even in the 1890s, that was one of the few times when America was actually about to go bankrupt, but J.P. Morgan had to save them. And so it just seems like just coincidentally, Jesus shows up when these very supernaturally appearing catastrophic events of America, not just the whole world, is specifically America. And that's when Jesus is going to arrive.
Well, if you look right here real quick, one more thing. You see, I've tried actually with, like, your buddy, you could try to show this to him, but he's not going to listen. Because as soon as they feel like you're trying to teach them, that's when you lose them. They're not here to be taught. They're here to be the teachers. And they will tell you they're the most humble people until you try to teach them. That's when you're going to see their real side. Anyway, especially being his age too. But so right here, the last prophecy I have recorded from that is 1968. Says true. This is them again. It says true. There have been those in times past who predicted an end to the world, even announcing a specific date. Yet nothing happened. The end did not come. They were guilty of false prophesying. Why? What was missing? Missing from such people were God's truths and evidence that he was using and guiding them. It's like, this is your own people. Like, you're talking about your own Watchtower people. It's like, you're literally talking about everybody, all the Watchtower people before me, they're all false prophets. I'm the real one. It's like, so who are we supposed to believe? Because then the next one after you is going to say the same thing. He was a false prophet. I'm the real one. And it's just going to keep going down this dumb cycle. But again, I've actually tried to show this kind of stuff and talk with them. Like, what do you do with all the failed prophecies? One Jehovah's Witness, he was an older guy. He actually told me, he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I got a whole list of stuff from your guys' literature. He was like, no, that's all fake. He actually said it was all fake. I was like,
it's all bunk.
Yeah, I know. I was like, so if I buy these books off eBay, because I got the stuff offline, off the digital copies of their books, but if I get a real one from 1897 and I show it to you, what would you say? And this is from the Watchtower publication. He's like, well, I guess I'd have to see it first, but I don't know what to say about it right now because I haven't seen it. I was like, so if I buy it for you and I send it to you, where you're living now, are you going? Because this is on the phone. He was like, oh yeah, I'll take a look at it. I was like, okay, well, and then what? When you see that this quotation's in here, that you guys, your Watchtower has failed time and time again in their prophecies. He's like, no, they never failed. I mean, sometimes they've made mistakes, but they've never made a false prophecy before. So he was just denying any of this stuff. So yeah, I don't think, and usually but I was amazed that he actually went there. Usually they just say, no, I don't want to hear it, and that's when they're done. But Anyway, so anybody that's out there, so you guys don't have to go through the same potholes. Who cares? Don't do that research. Just ask them questions. Just ask them questions.
I mean, it's good to know things like that. So, if you do find yourself asking these questions, and you'll know if you commit to this belief system, you're going to have to accept these truths as well. And hopefully that deters you for such things. But yeah, ultimately, the best thing to have is conversation. Because when you have conversation and you feel like it's genuine, people let down their guard, because when they feel like this is an agenda, they feel like this is an attack, like this is some kind of protagonist, antagonist, where like there's the good guys and the bad guys, everybody's on their guard and nobody's being real. But if they feel like, oh yeah, and this is all real, rhetoric ends on both sides of the coin, and you'll figure out if this is something you want to believe in, or if this is something that they want to believe in. And I think the end result is probably the best thing. But yeah, at some point, facts of events and belief systems, they're heinous anyway. Like you can do the same thing with the Christian church, the Catholic church, the Mormons, the Jehovah Witnesses, it don't matter. So when you start talking about histories of beliefs, then you have to be Christian. There's heinousness everywhere. So that's not really a fruitful way anyway to go down a conversation. It's more about, well, let's just talk about what we believe in.
I've actually had a lot of progress with JWs and Mormons when they don't know what I believe, because I'm just plain ignorant. I don't show them I know anything about the Jehovah's Witnesses. I start fresh. I come with a fresh slate. What do Mormons believe? Oh, so you guys are like those guys. Okay. Or, I just ask them in pure ignorance. They don't have to know what I know. They don't know, and especially if they know I'm a Christian, that's when they're out automatically, because this guy's already locked in. He's already part of this cult. They think we're in this cult and all this. So if you don't tell me you're a Christian, you'll go a lot farther too. In your case, it's probably too late. But
well, my case is special too, because I've worked for him. I'm friends with his son. And I'm probably one of his son's best friends. And I also started off the whole conversation like, we're not trying to go right and wrong here, but we will talk about. And I let him know, and I'm like, if you're up for this, tell me. And he agreed. And so what's he going to do? Leave halfway through his breakfast? No. But you never know. I'm also not like a stabby guy,
Well, I think that's good, because I think people, when they feel like you are open, even if we just want to use the word vulnerable, they'll talk to you more and the conversation flows more. So
everybody wants to win one. Christians do the same thing. If a Christian thinks you're an unbeliever and they're trying to preach the gospel to you, they will talk to you for hours. But
even
if they
Christian
know you're
versus Christian.
If they know you're Christian, that's when they're like, no. Nobody wants to talk about that. Well, I've seen the J-Dubs work in mysterious ways.
Well, to end out this episode, do you have anything else you want to show us, or has the tablets been sealed?
No, I'm done.
Okay, that's good. What about you, Golden Arm? You have any last words, or?
I rest my arm.
Any last words?
Rest my.
Well, anyways,
thanks for having me. But
yeah, well, no problem. Maybe you'll come back on. We would love to see you back again and continue more conversations. But hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this episode. Now we've talked about the Mormons. We've touched on the Jehovah Witnesses, and if there's other groups out there you want us to talk about or go into, let us know in the comments, and we'll dive into those. But until next week, this is Table Talk TV. We're signing out.
Happy New Year's.